A very common comment that I get on my YouTube channel as well as my TikTok and Facebook videos are people saying, I buy all of these same items, but I can't sell them. I want to talk about one of the most important factors when it comes to selling items, which is pricing. I want to go over some of the psychology of pricing, how you should actually price your items, when you should mark them down or do discounts, all of those things. So let's jump right into it. The most important step in pricing is actually figuring out what your starting price, what your asking price is actually going to be. And my recommendation based on all of the items that I've sold is to list your items at market value. Now, a lot of people get confused on what is actually the market value because there's sold data for the same item selling for $120 and $99, and there's even some that sell for $60. So I'm most likely just gonna price mine at $120 because someone got $120 for this item, why not me? There's several different things that go into that consideration, such as sell-through rate, condition, how new or old the item is, how difficult or easy it is to find, and what the supply is. We'll talk about all of that stuff in a minute, but let's just talk about general pricing at the market. So right here I have with me, this is my personal computer mouse. I love it, not sponsored. This is the MX Master 3 by Logitech. It is an awesome mouse and it has a great resale value. So when I look it up, I look up MX Master 3 mouse and then I make sure that I'm filtered to used, and then I go to sold listings. The first one that sold was for $51 plus $8 in shipping. Another one sold for $58 free shipping. Another one sold for $44.99 plus shipping. One sold as low as $35, and then another one sold for as much as $80. So how do you price this at market? Well, I just look at the quick average, and to me what stands out is about $50 plus shipping. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna list that item at $50 plus shipping. A lot of people say, well, I'm going to send offers out on those items, so I'm gonna list it for $60 and then send a 15% off discount to watchers so that way I can get the $50 that I originally wanted. If you do this, you will get sales that trickle in, but you will have significantly less sales than you would have if you just price the items at market. You're going to get a lot of full price sales if you do this because there are tons of different buyer demographics. Some people are just shopping the best deal possible. Some people buy the first one that looks good enough to them regardless of price, yada, yada, yada. We'll get into some of that later on in the video as well. But I'm going to price this at $49.87 plus shipping, which I have a flat rate of $5.87 for anything under 12 ounces, which this would be under 12 ounces. Let's talk about that 87 cents, okay? This is just psychology. I don't care what you think about it. There's a huge debate on pricing something at $50.00, 50 bucks. Some people say you should do $49.99. Some people say you should do $49.95. I have chosen $49.87. This is just a psychological hack that you must use. Again, there are many of you watching this video that say, I sell items at $50 flat all the time. That's great. I promise you will sell more items if you list it at $49.99. My wife falls victim to this all the time. Every time she goes to Target, she'll buy something for $29.99 and she tells me it was $20. Not because she's being deceitful or lying to me. I'm perfectly fine with her spending $30 on a decorative pillow. That's beside the point. But in her mind, she is just psychologically trained to think that that's 20 bucks or it's $29 when in all reality, it's $30. This doesn't mean that my wife is dumb by any means. She's incredibly intelligent. But that's just these psychological tips that make you think that you are spending less money on all of your purchases. I have found through a lot of business literature and experience that when your item ends with a price of $49.87, it is a psychological trick to make the person think that it is discounted, even though it is your full asking price. Just seeing that 7, psychologically, you can call it persuades or manipulates, whatever you want. It just makes the person think, oh, this is a slightly better deal, it has to be on discount. They don't even think that thought consciously, but subconsciously, for a large demographic of people, they see this is a good deal, so they click on it. Do not price your items at $50 or $20 or $30. Price them at $29.99 or $29.95 is even better, and $29.87 is even better. The majority of you guys are selling under 5 items per day. So if you were to list your item at $29.99, I'm going to list it at $29.87, and I'm going to sell it quicker than you, and all I'm sacrificing is 12 cents. 12 cents times 5 is significantly less than $1. So just think of it as you are sacrificing $1 to get additional sales every single day. I sell tens of thousands of items every single year. I am okay with losing what? If I sell 10,000 items and I get 12 cents less than you guys, and I'm not talking about fees and all of that stuff, don't get tangled in those weeds, but I'm sacrificing 12 cents times 10,000. I am paying $1,200 to get significantly more sales than my competition. I definitely recommend using these pricing things. And then when you're a buyer, if I have something listed for $39.87, don't offer me $29.99, offer me $30. You don't know who you're dealing with. There's a good chance that I view that as $29 or $20, and I want at least 30, and that penny can make a huge psychological difference for sellers. So if you are trying to buy things at a discounted rate, make sure that your offers are whole numbers, not $34.99 but $35, not $99.99 but $100. And if you are sending offers, never send $100, always send $99.99 or $99.87 or whatever number it is that you choose to do. Now let's talk about discounts and offers and the tactics behind that to increase sales and profit and all of that stuff. So like I mentioned earlier, a lot of you guys want to sell something at $50, so you price it at $60, hoping that people will watch your item, and then you can send an offer to make it $50, or they will send you a $50 offer. That tactic can work and it will get sales trickled in, as I was saying earlier. But if you want to actually maximize sales, list your items at market and be willing to sell them for below market. A lot of people are going to disagree with this, and it's a very controversial statement. Do what's best for you and your business. But if you want more sales, if you list something at market, you will get more sales. And if you're willing to let go of it for less than market, you will have much more sales. And it all comes down to your buying cost. So if you are spending too much money on your inventory and you can't give those discounts, then you're not going to want to send a 15% off offer on something that's at market value. So you got to make sure that you are buying correctly, that you are getting the items that will sell quickly at a good rate, and that you are spending a good amount of money on them, not too much, right? So let's talk about, if you buy something for $6 and it sells for $119.99 plus shipping, and someone sends you a $100 offer, accept that. Don't be that prideful person that says, I know what I have, I'm gonna get top dollar, and I'm gonna let all of my competition get so many sales that they can buy a house while I stay in my situation and I never actually make the money that I could be making because I know what I have. If you guys have ever said that statement in your life, remove that from your vocabulary and watch how much more money you make. I'm not telling you what to do. You can do whatever you want. Like, this is not a, hey, do what I say or you will, whatever. But if you actually want to make more sales, remove that statement from your life and you will make more sales and you will make more money. I follow a real estate agent on YouTube who has sold like $100 million in real estate. And he was selling a ton of homes before the pandemic boom. He was selling houses in 2018 for $300,000. 3 years later, those houses were going for $600,000. And a lot of people said to him, man, don't you wish you would have waited to sell all of your houses so you could make more money off of them? And he said, if I didn't sell those other houses, I would not have had capital to buy new houses and then sell for the $600,000 anyway. You have to sell your items to have money to buy more profitable items and sell more. If you are selling 2 items for $100 every day, not talking about fees or expenses, you're making $200. But if you have 18 items that are $100 and you send a 20% off coupon, so they're only $80, and you sell 9 of them, you are making close to $1,000 instead of $200. And now you can go out and buy more $100 items, which is just a hypothetical, and it's much easier said than done, but you will make more money. So the strategy is, don't list high just to send offers. You're going to get less watchers and less movement on the item and less potential buyers, because people are going to see your item and the exact same condition item above it or below it for $10 cheaper. Why would they buy yours? There are certain demographics of people who will buy yours because it's more expensive and they perceive that there's more value. That's a discussion for a different video. Maybe I can include it in this video, I don't know. But anyway, the majority of buyers are going to pick the cheaper price in the exact same condition. It's just the way it works. Now, a lot of people are going to say, well, eBay wants to make more money and they are going to promote and show you the higher valued one. There might be some juice to that, I guess you could say. But eBay is smarter than I am. They are worth billions and billions of dollars. And they know, oh, this person who logged on eBay today, I have history of their last 87 transactions, and I know that they always buy the cheapest option available, so I'm going to place the cheapest item available in front of them and they're gonna buy it. Now this other buyer that comes in, I have data on their last 13 purchases, and they actually spend 7 to 12% above market price for the items that they buy. So we're gonna present them with those items that are 10% over market, and there's a good chance that they end up buying those. But the majority of people shop for discounts or lower prices. If you want more sales, list at market or slightly below it, and be willing to accept and extend offers below market, and you will make significantly more money than the people who don't. Let's talk about mine and several other resellers and YouTubers that I know. That was a weird sentence. Our markdown strategy, okay? Again, I know what I have is going to make you significantly less money. I know what the market is demanding is going to make you significantly more money. So here's what I do. I haven't even talked about sell-through rate, but you want to focus on high sell-through rate items that have demand and price them correctly. The more you do this, the less you're going to have a markdown strategy, but you are still going to need one, right? So this is my markdown strategy. You guys can copy it, you can amend it, you can discredit it and think it's stupid, whatever you guys want. What I do is I focus on items that have a 90-day sell-through rate. That means the majority of those items are going to be gone if I list them in 90 days. Obviously that doesn't always happen. Sometimes I pick up items that have a 180-day sell-through rate or a year sell-through rate. I tend to stay away from those items, but sometimes I pick items up like that and I list them in my eBay store. I'm doing that less and less every single day, week and year, but that's my prerogative, and you can list your CDs and Hot Wheels cars if you would like to. Again, there are awesome CDs with awesome sell-through rate and awesome Hot Wheels cars with awesome sell-through rates, but the majority of them that you see other YouTubers listing don't have those sell-through rates. Anyway, focus on those items and you won't have to do as many markdowns. But like I said, you're still going to list items. You're even going to list items that have a 90-day sell-through rate or quicker, and you list it at market, and for whatever reason, yours just doesn't get picked, and it may make it to your markdown. But what I do for my markdown is if an item has been in my store for 90 days, I mark it down 15%. If it is still there 90 days later, I mark it down an additional 15%. If it's still there 90 days later, now we're talking 270 days, I mark it down another 15%. If it is still there 90 days later, I get it out of my store. I either sell it live in bulk lots or individual items on my reselling platform, firstclasstreasures.com, in a live show, or I donate them to a thrift store, or I just give them away to family and friends. It just depends on what's going on. But you want to be marking down your inventory over time, or else it's just going to sit. I have people brag to me all the time. They're like, I just sold a book that I had listed in my eBay store for 10 years and I never marked it down. That is not something to be proud of. I'm sorry to burst that bubble. There's this thing called inflation, the devaluation of the dollar, and you making $14 in 2024 is better than making $19 today in 2024. I meant to say 2014. It is better to make $14 in 2014 than it is to make $19 in 2024, especially because of inflation. But you also have to add to that, eBay fees have increased since then. Shipping fees and shipping costs have increased since then. The bubble wrap you're wrapping that in has increased since then. You are making less money every single day your items are listed. And this goes back to my previous concept of be willing to sell things for under market, because even if you sell it for full price, even 9 months later, especially during this hyperinflationary period that we've been experiencing for the last 5 years, you are making less money even though you're selling it for that higher price. Again, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds of inflation and rising costs and all of that stuff. I'd love to get into that on a separate channel. I plan on making a finance channel someday, but that's beside the point of this video. You need to move your items, okay? My friend Paige, One Foot Flipper, I encourage all of you guys to subscribe to Paige. He's an awesome YouTube channel. Very similar to my style of content, talking head videos, presenting information, but he does it in a much different way that may resonate with you better than it does with me. I definitely recommend checking him out. He has gone back and forth between his markdown strategies. What he used to do is every 30 days, he would mark down his items 3%. So he would list something at $20. I'll keep the math even simpler for myself. He'll list something at 10 bucks. 30 days later, he marks it down 3%, so it goes down 30 cents. Now he has something that's $9.70. 30 days later, he marks it down 3 cents, 3 percentage points again. So that is 9.7 plus 9.7 plus 9.7. Pretty dang close to 30 cents again, but it's 29 cents this time. And then he just keeps doing that until the item sells. Now he has switched to my method, except for 15%, he does 10%. So every 90 days, he marks his items down 10%. If it's still there 90 days later, 10%. And I think he goes until there's a certain threshold of like 5. He won't ship something out for less than, correct me if I'm wrong, Paige, like $3.50 plus shipping. It might be a little higher or a little lower. But what he does is he doesn't remove that item from his store until it gets to that threshold. And then he takes it out and he live sells it, or he donates it, or he gives it to family members. I think this is an awesome strategy as well. I do think that the 90-day schedule is better than the 30, and I think he has actually told me that as well. But you guys need to do your own strategies and do that as well. But I believe that if you want to actually make a substantial side hustle income, or if you want to go full-time reselling on eBay, I think you need to have a markdown schedule. If you aren't continuously marking your items down, you are not going to make nearly the money as you would have. Again, this is a hard concept for a lot of people to understand, and it's okay if it is, but making less money per sell, but selling your items much more often, you will make much more money. Everyone has their price of $120, and they will not take $115. They won't even take $118. They want $120. Those people are making significantly less money than you. If you're willing to accept $100, if you're willing to accept $80, if you got it for $5 and you have the opportunity to sell it for $80, why not? Now, when it comes to extremely fast sell-through rate items, you can be a bit more picky on your pricing, and you can say, hey, I know that this is going to sell same week for 120, so I'm not going to accept any offer except for $5 off. I would still take that $5 off offer, especially if you got that item for under $50. If it sells for 120, you bought it for $50 or 40 or 10 or $1, and you're not willing to sell it for 115. I don't think you're going to be watching my channel in 2 years, because you're not going to be selling on eBay in 2 years. It's just my strong opinion. But it is very important to mark down your items, and you will be surprised how many items sell when you mark them down. There's plenty of ways you can do this. You can delist the item, mark it down 15%, and then relist the item. Or you can just simply mark it down 15%. eBay 2025 Open has come out and said that the delist relist doesn't work. It's just a myth. And I agree, and I think that it's a myth. But this is the system that I use only because it helps me stay organized. Let me repeat that. The only reason why I delist relist is because it helps me keep my items more organized, not because I think it affects the algorithm or my customers in any way. When you don't delist your item, once it's been listed for 91 days, it just says 91 and then 92. And then what happens is you're going to have items that are listed for 180 days. So you'll have to select all of them that are 180 and then go to your page that has all of them at 90 and your page that has all of them at 270, and then adjust all of those prices. But when you delist relist, it keeps it very organized, that if an item has been listed for 90 days, I delist it, I mark it down 15%, and I post it. Now it has been listed for 0 days, and once it gets back to 90, all I have to do is delist it, mark it down 15%, and it goes back to 0. And if it gets to 90 again, I just continue that cycle, and it really works for me. But if you don't have a markdown strategy, you are leaving at least tens of thousands, depending on how big your store is, even hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. And then here's another very common question that I get. Jake, what if I find an item that has 0 listed and 1 sold, or 0 listed and 3 sold? I just came across this scenario the other day. I found a new old stock South Park plushies toy set. It was just a long box that had the 4 characters. I don't watch South Park, so I don't know their names. I know one of them's name is Kenny. But yeah, I don't know any of the other characters. But I don't need to be able to sell it, because eBay gives us all of the sales information we need. Google, it's awesome. This occupation, reselling, is awesome. Patagonia has spent billions of dollars in marketing and enhancing their products, and I get to just grab their item for $10 at a thrift store and sell it for $125 because of all of the work that they've done. It's beautiful. It is beautiful. Oakley has done such an amazing job of creating awesome products and advertising those products and making them a premium item. So that way, when I find it at a thrift store for $1, I can sell it for $85 the same week. It's beautiful. Anyway, I forgot what I was talking about. Okay, back to the South Park. I found one of those in an estate sale. I paid $1 fetching dollar for it. I saw that there were 0 listed, and no, there were, I think there were okay, wait, let me think about this. I think there were 3 listed and 7 sold. The 3 of them that were listed, the cheapest was $250. Another one was $400, and another one was like $400 as well. Then I filtered to sold. There were 7 sold. One of them sold for as low as $80, and then the other ones all sold for an average of $120. It's funny that I've used the 120 mark so much in this video. Anyway, a few of them sold for $140, a few of them sold for $100, a few of them sold for $120. So what I did is I listed mine at $120. And then 3 days later, I got an offer for $80. So someone obviously looked at the lowest sold comp and offered me that. I offered back $100 and they bought it. So when it comes to that, I don't price the highest and I don't price necessarily the lowest, because I'm just going to list it at what I perceive as market value, and I'm willing to sell it below market value if possible. Now, sometimes people say, I found a signed baseball. There are 0 listed and 0 sold. What do I do? This is going to take much more extensive research. So what I actually recommend in this scenario is to just not sell that signed ball on eBay. I would, if I can get that signed ball for $1, I'm going to buy it and I'm going to sell it on First Class Treasures live, and I may only get $2 for it, or I may get $200 for it, depending on the player, right? But if there is no sales data for that specific player signing a baseball, what you can do is you can look up other signed baseballs from similar players and see that those sold for $35. I would list mine at $35. But that takes extensive knowledge and research, because it could be a bench player. It's kind of different in baseball, but a player that never really sees the field, but they were good in the minor leagues. They just weren't talented enough to make that transition. There's another player very similar to him who was in the exact same situation, but he dated Carmen Electra, and because he dated Carmen Electra, he ended up being a social icon, and so his ball is selling for $80. So you think, oh, this guy was his teammate, very similar situation, I'm gonna list mine for $80, and it never sells because he didn't date Carmen Electra. This is just a made-up scenario. I watched a Dennis Rodman documentary the other day, so I think that's why I'm thinking about Carmen Electra. Anyway, so there's just so many things that go into that it makes it difficult. But like in another situation, you have a baseball player that was a starter who played almost every game of the season for 11 seasons straight. He was a first baseman. He wasn't a all-star. He wasn't even close to an all-star. He was just a solid role player, and his ball sold for $40. And then you find another guy who was a similar situation, maybe slightly better, maybe slightly worse. I'm going to price that ball at $40. But in this scenario, I'm just going to live sell that on First Class Treasures. And if it goes for $3, cool. If it goes for 40 or 100, even cooler. So, but I would really focus on items that are in demand, that have a high sell-through rate, that people are looking for and purchasing regularly. And all of that pricing data is going to be right there in front of you, and it's going to make your job and life significantly easier. Watching that clip back, I realized I didn't even answer the original question, so let me do that real quick. What if I find an item that there are 0 listed and 3 sold? I go over to the item and I see that it has sold for $200, $150, and $250. There's a couple of ways that you can do this, and depending on your markdown strategy and those other sell-through rate tips and things like that, you may want to do this differently. The first thing is what immediately comes to people's minds is, oh my gosh, there's 0 sold and there's 0 listed and 3 sold. That means the highest price was still too low because it sold close to immediately. Someone was willing to pay even more for that. So what I'm going to do is, I see that it has sold for $150, $200, and $250. I'm going to list mine at $300, and I'm going to have offers turned on and see if people bite at $300. Some people might even be even more romanticized about that and be like, I'm listing it for $500 and I'm going to put offers on, and I'll say that I'm going to take anything over $250, but then 40 days pass and I finally get an offer for $250 or $275, and I'm like, no, this is worth closer to $500. And so I counter back at $450, and then the person walks, right? Anyway, I'm rambling in this video. So you can do that. I would recommend $300. And then I would actually, the people that have the 30-day markdown strategy like Paige had are going to benefit more off of this, because if it doesn't sell within the first 30 days, then it's going to get marked down. And then if it's still too high, it'll get marked down again until it sells. But 90-day markdown is great for this too. If you're probably going to sell it in 180 or 270 days. If it has that high of demand and you list it at 300, 90 days later, if you mark that down 15%, that's going to be $45 discount. So it's going to be right there, close to the last sold price of $255. If it doesn't sell on that for 90 days, you'll probably sell it the same day 90 days later, because 15% of $255 is $25.50, and then half of that is $12.25. So you're looking at a price of about $200 and 255 minus 37.50. So you're looking at a price of about $220, and it'll sell probably the same day at that price. Maybe it'll wait a week or so, and maybe the market has now decided it's only worth 150, so you're gonna have to mark it down even one more time to get there. But anyway, then the next strategy is you can just match the last highest price of 250 and see what happens, or you can match the median price. This is usually what I do. If there was 0 listed and 3 sold though, I think I would probably go somewhere between the highest and middle price. So if it sold for 200 and 250, I'm putting mine at 224.87 plus shipping. And then I'm accepting any offer around $180 or higher is what I'm personally doing. And then you can just do the approach of like, hey, I want this gone today, list it at 150, and it'll probably be gone in a week. I hope this video isn't getting too long. I just want to talk about multiple different scenarios that can help a larger audience of people, and hopefully you guys can get a lot of information from everything that I'm talking about or just certain things that I'm talking about. Another common question is, what if I find something, like let's say that South Park had 7 listed and only 1 sold. This is a bit tougher of a situation. First of all, I probably wouldn't buy something that has that low of a sell-through rate unless it was selling for $120. Then I would probably buy it and sell it for $120. So this calls into the question sell-through rate. If something has a higher sell-through rate, it means it has more demand and you can get more for that item. Again, don't be greedy. Don't tell yourself, I know what I have. Be willing to accept what the market is giving you, right? So if you have AirPod Pros, for example, and they are new, sealed, and authentic by Apple, let's say the going market is $250. You list it for $249.87 plus shipping, and someone immediately offers you $200. You don't have to accept that because you can see from the sales data that this has a 3-day sell-through rate. So you can just simply wait 3 days. You might have to wait as much as 11 days, but that's going to sell for full price in 11 days or sooner. I can almost guarantee that. But if you have it listed for $329, it's not going to sell in 100 days because you have it way too freaking high. Anyway, the higher the demand and the higher the sell-through rate on an item, the less you need to discount it if you're a little bit more patient. But what I recommend is just having the floodgates open. When it comes to that very specific example of a AirPod that has a 17,000% sell-through rate, I'm going to wait and just let it sell for $250. Now let's say you have a grunge CD that sells for $40 and it has a 200% sell-through rate. There are 25 listed and 50 sold. That's still going to take about 45 days to sell, maybe a little bit longer, maybe a bit sooner, but it's going to take about 6 weeks. If someone offers me $30 on day 3, I'm going to take that. Instead of getting $10 more 40 days later, I'm just going to take the $30. I got it from a yard sale for 25 cents because I bought 3 other CDs for $1. In that scenario, I'm taking that. If there are 25 sold and 200 listed, I'm taking any first offer that is less than 30% off. So if I list it for $40 and someone offers me 20, that's 50% off. I'm not going to take that. I'm going to counter back with $40. Wait, I have it listed for 40. They offered 20. I'm going to counter with 35. And if I don't get the sell, I don't get the sell. They're probably going to counter back with 25. And then I'm willing to accept 30 because that's what? About 30% off. If for some reason, and I actually do this, I list a lot of eyeglasses that have very low sell-through rate. So like, for example, I'll list some, I can't even remember how the acronym goes. It's like BZBC Axaria glasses. Those sell for like $30, but there's usually like 12 sold and 65 listed. I'm going to accept anything over 50% off on that because I know that if I don't accept that, then it's going to sit in my store for 270 days and it's going to get discounted to that price anyway. So I'd rather just get that money today instead of 270 days later. I'm getting a bit rambly here. I hope this is making sense to you guys. But basically the essence of this video is get better at finding what the true market value of an item is and list it at that. The second concept, be willing to accept offers below market depending on the sell-through rate of the item and your personal preference for how quickly or how long you want to wait for that money. And that is up to you and your business and your metrics. The third principle, I don't care what experience you have had, the business and psychological literature proves every single time that you will sell your items more quickly and you will sell more of that product, especially if you have a lot of it, if you price at 99 cents, 95 cents, my personal favorite, 87 cents. You can even play around with 49 cents, 47 cents. If you price something at $35, you will sell it slower than if you priced it at $34.99. I promise you guys, that is psychology and it just works. And you will sell it even faster if you price it at 87 instead of 99. But yeah, don't be prideful. Don't say you know what you have and you only accept top dollar. Make more money than your competitors. That's what we're here to do. It's really tough. Business is tough. It really is, because in order to make more money, you have to beat someone else. Someone else has to lose for you to win. That's just the reality that we're in. I want you guys to beat your competition, to beat me if necessary. Okay? I have my systems in place where I'm making good money. We're very blessed. We have everything financially taken care of pretty much for the rest of our lives. All we have to do is not screw it up, right? I want you guys to get to the position that I'm in, to where you have more time than you ever have. You have more money than you ever have, and you have more joy and time to spend with your family than you ever have. I have to beat other people in the process of making money for my wife and future daughter and other future kids, but it's what we got to do. So I'm pricing at 87 cents, and if this video goes viral, it's not. This is probably going to get between 5,000 and 12,000 views because it's a pretty boring one. But if this somehow got 50 million views and everyone starts pricing at 87 cents, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start pricing at 77 cents because I'm going to beat you guys. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I love you guys so much. Please check out First Class Treasures if you haven't already. First link in the description. It's my baby. I love it. I would love to see you guys in those live shows. It's completely free to be a member. I'd love to hang out with you guys there. See you there. Bye.